What's going on, world? Welcome to my podcast. It's just different with Ty, where I talk about sports, social, political issues, you name it, everything under the sun. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. I leave all comments in the section below. Hit the notification bell so you get updated on the latest newest videos because I'm coming with that fire, right? So we're going to talk about this whole curriculum thing in Florida. I had time to really read this over, and I'm gonna tell you what I think about it. So let's get into it. All right. So the past few days, state of Florida has come up with this African American history curriculum that I believe that they approved, and the governor Desantis, basically he was spearheading this. He was behind this. If you guys don't remember, a few months ago there was a group. I'm not sure they proposed African American history, curriculum, and it was rejected by the by Ron DeSantis, and so now the Florida School of Education seems to be behind this new curriculum in African American history. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I read most of it. It's a 216-page document. I read most of it. I'm not going to bore you guys dissecting, just picking apart every single thing that I found wrong with this. I will be here for 20 hours. I could do it, but I'm not trying to really do that. I just picked out a few things, just a few. That's it, just a few. And, I wanted to talk about this. I was seeing it all over the news, and it took me, a couple of days to really read it and figure out what's what's going on here, but we're gonna get into this. And if you look at section 4 of the 216-page document, when it has 5 African American history studies, SS.5.A.A12, and it says, I'm reading off. All right, now this is approved by the Florida education system, again spearheaded by Governor Ron DeSantis. So I'm gonna read this off and I'm gonna break it down a little bit. I'm not gonna go too deep into it. It says, examine the Underground Railroad and how former slaves partnered with other free people in groups in assisting those escaping from slavery. Okay, so just a little bit about that. We all know about the Underground Railroad. Harriet Tubman is famous for, it just wasn't her, but she's the one that's famous for this. And I looked at it from this stance when it says partner with other free people in groups and assisting those escaping from slavery. To me, it came off as other people than Black people helping, which there were a few, right? There were some probably white people there that were helping, but I see this as a way for these Florida teachers to really take advantage of the situation and dive in and go, look, nope, see, look. And if, let's say, if there's only 20 white people that actually assisted, I don't know the numbers, that helped with the Underground Railroad, I'm pretty sure it's going to be 20,000 when it's said and done. So I look at that, just little thing like that. Again, everyone, when you read through this, you're going to have your own things that you might pick out and point out and say, hey, you might have an issue with this, issue with that, but let's just move on. Again, it gets a lot more interesting as I go on. Number 6 of 216 And 16, it says the benchmark clarification. And it says instruction includes treatment of indentured servants of European and African extraction. So here we talking about African American studies, African American history. Yet the Florida Schools of Education, along with Governor Ron DeSantis, agreed that it's somehow beneficial that Black kids in Florida should learn about indentured servants of Europeans in this country. Tell me, how does that make any sense? Tell me what does African American history has to do with Europeans being indentured servants? I don't know. Somebody, maybe I'm missing. I don't listen. I don't have a degree in history. I'm not a scholar. I'm not, but it just doesn't make sense to me. Again, what it's doing is it's showing or is trying to paint a picture that look, Black people, look, it's just not just y'all weren't the only ones that was had to work in cruel and harsh conditions. Look, these Europeans were indentured servants. Look, hey. So it's trying to, I think, mock slavery in the sense of to say, hey, you guys weren't the only one that had to go through these things. Other, Europeans did as well. So if you go to number 7 of 216 pages in that document, ss.68.aa23, all right? And it says, examine the various duties and trades performed by slaves, agriculture, painting, carpentry, domestic service, yada, yada. And then it goes down, benchmark clarification. Instruction includes how slaves develop skills, which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. Now, when I saw the headlines to this, I immediately seen how it was said that they were that basically in this curriculum, this African American studies curriculum, that they were saying how slavery was a good thing for Black people. There were some benefits into that. And I just didn't want to come from an emotional, place and just automatically say, oh, no, I can't believe. I had to read. Again, I didn't read all of it. I read most of the 216 pages. So I read most of it. But here is clearly, if you go down to page 7 of 216, where it says benchmark clarification, instructions include how slaves developed skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. So that's a undertone way of saying, yo, listen, we enslaved y'all. Yeah, that happened, but just look, you was able to do carpentry. You was able to do brick mason. You was able to do, learn how to grow cotton or all it. So now, when you go to your house, after working a 12-hour shift on the slave master's plantation, you can, have maybe an hour to work on your house, whatever. I don't. It just sends the wrong message. I totally disagree with that. I see what they was trying to say and the narrative that they're trying to push, that somehow slavery had benefits to the slaves, to African people that was forced to be slaves in this country. Again, I can just go on and on and on and on and on about this. I don't know, y'all. I don't know. You guys let me know how y'all feel about that. It's just more nonsense. And if you go to page 8 of 216, 912, it talks about African American history. SS.1, 912.AA.1.1. And it says examines the condition of slavery as it existed in Africa, Asia, and the Americas and Europe prior to 1619. Interesting. So it talks about, again, I'll read that again. Examine the conditions of slavery as it existed in Africa, Asia, and the Americas and Europe. So now This is African American history. Let's just talk about when African people were kidnapped, right, and forced to become slaves in America, but yet they Florida school system and the governor felt it was somehow important to talk about slavery in other countries. You know what that's doing? That's deflecting. That is deflecting, and that is trying to have a lack of accountability for their actions. So now they can say, "Oh, nah, it just wasn't us, y'all. It just wasn't. Look. Let's talk about Asia. Let's talk about Central America. Let's talk about all these other. Let's talk about Europe. Let's talk about all these other places, so we can deflect and not put the blame on on United States of America. So now, when Black people in America, when African Americans in this country talk about reparations and what we went through and this and that, it's just bigger, so many different layers to that, because they say, oh, we got to do it here, we got to do it over here, we got to do it over there too, because they all were slaves over there in this country and all over the world. So we're not basically going to give y'all anything, because if we give for one, we got to give for all, and we're not trying to do none of that. As far as it pertains to African people being slaves throughout the world. So we're not going to do it nowhere. But again, it definitely, with that, it deflects and it points blame to other different places, other different areas. And we're supposed to be talking about African Americans in America. That's what I thought. It was only supposed to talk about African Americans in America. But when they want to deflect, they're going to bring everybody else in it, right? Or all of the different regions and everywhere else. So when you go down a little bit further, it talks about the benchmark clarification 1. Instructions includes how trading and slaves developed in African lands. I'll read that again. Instruction includes how trading and slaves developed in African lands. So again, this is that fake notion that they love to talk about, right? That they love to talk about. They love saying how, well, other Africans participated in that. It just wasn't Europeans. Africans, they had a hand in it. They was giving up other African. So we're going to talk about that, right? There's like 10,000 different languages. I probably might be exaggerating, but 10,000 different languages in Africa. Slave is not an African word. That is like Slovenian or something like that. So this notion of slaves and that is not even an African word. So the idea of enslaving someone or slavery, that the origin of that is not even African. So we wouldn't even have the idea and the concept of what that really is, because the word didn't exist. Didn't come from Africa. Now, having said all that, yes, there probably were a few participants not knowing what type of slavery the Europeans or the Arabs were doing, because when there was infighting in between different African nations, it was you was accepted in there. You had to eat last. If you was a POW, right, prisoner of war, in those African nations and those tribes, when they would fight, you would have to eat last, or you would have to, do something of that nature. And then many times, a lot of the prisoners of war stayed within that culture and that new culture that captured them, because a lot of them was treated very good. You don't really hear that at all as it pertains to Europeans enslaving Africans or Arabs enslaving Africans. You don't really hear that. If there is, you might find one maybe out of millions, but one, needle in a haystack. But again, to me, how I read that is trying to deflect the responsibility of the accountability of Europeans and say, hey, listen, yes, we did this, but we had help. It was other Africans that knew what they were doing. That's how I read that. I could be wrong, but that's how I read it. Now, if you go to clarification 2, right under that, it says instructions includes the practice of the Barbary pirates in kidnapping Europeans and selling them into slavery in Muslim countries. I'm going to read that one more time. Here we talking about African American studies, and yet the governor of Florida, Ron Desantis, and the Florida school board education system thought that it was appropriate to include kidnapping, Barbary pirates, and kidnapping of Europeans and selling them into slavery in Muslim countries. What the hell does that have to do with African American history? Can somebody tell me, what does pirates and kidnapping Europeans and selling them to Muslim countries have to do with African American history? Can somebody tell me? Was anybody of common sense, of anybody that had common sense at this decision making when it was decided this is what we're going to teach in the school systems to in Florida to about African American history? No, but again, it's to show, hey, look, y'all, you guys weren't the only, black people weren't the only one that was slaves. Look, white people, they were slaves in other countries far away, but this is African American history. What the hell does that have to do? And again, I'm not saying, listen, anybody being enslaved is wrong. So let me put that out there. Anybody that's being enslaved, anybody where their people had to suffer genocide or anything like that is wrong. So let's get that straight first. Just because I'm black, I'm not going to sit there and go, well, no. Just from a sense of compassion, morale, just good, genuine, kind-hearted person. You don't want to see nobody enslaved. You don't want to see a group of people be wiped out, or a massacre happen. But what the hell does that have to do with African American history? What does the Barbary pirates kidnapping Europeans and selling them to Muslim countries? What the hell does that have to do with African American history? Can I say it one more time? What the hell does Barbary pirates kidnapping Europeans and selling them in Muslim countries have to do with African American history? Can somebody answer that for me, please? Because I'm lost. I need help. I need help with that. Now, if you go on page 9 of 216, benchmark classification, instructions include the triangular trade and how those three-tiered systems encourage the use of slavery. Is basically what that is. Again, is talking about other countries, other nations participating, whether if it was the Asians, whether it was the Arabs, again, that's good to know. However, we're talking about African Americans and their plight, right? In United States of America. How the Africans, because remember, not all Africans went to United States of America, but we're talking about the Africans that were kidnapped in Africa and shipped to the United States of America and forced to be slaves. We're talking about that history, right? Going back, which was way before 1619, might I add. A lot of people think it was 1619. Nah, that was going on way before. Okay. So again, when you talk about the triangular trade and how these things, again, it's talking about all of the distant nationalities, which they should be exposed to. Other groups should be exposed in the enslavement of African people. So, I do agree with that in that sense. But again, what they're trying to do is spin it and say, look, now it just wasn't us. It was Asians too. So black people. So instead of just coming to white people and saying, well, we did wrong, you got to look at the Asians. You got to look at this. You got to look at it. That's what that's doing. That's what that's doing. All right. Now, the British North America. Okay. Because if you go down a little bit further, SS point 912.AA.17 said compare the living conditions of slaves in British North America colonies. Okay. All right. So it's comparing the living conditions of slaves in British North America. So British North America, for those that don't know history, I'm going to break it down. Again, I might not break it down. And also it talks about the instructions includes the harsh conditions and their consequences on British American plantation. So they want us to believe that during the whole British, America at that time, that's when the slaves had it rough. That's when they had it extremely bad. That's when this was going on, that was going on. And, they just had it harsh. And then after, like 1776 during independence and everything else, that's when, it was still slavery, but you guys didn't really have it that bad, at that time. There was rules and laws in play and different things of that nature. And during the Slavery Abolition Act, which was what 17 or 18 early 1800s. During this time, all these different acts came in to help the slaves and all that, a bunch of nonsense. So they're making it seem like, yeah, you guys had it bad with us, but it was really worse during the British North America colonies and everything else during that time. You really had it bad, So if you look at it, fast forward with all the things you guys went through after slavery and everything, it really wasn't that bad. That's how I read that. Again, accountability is just deflecting, more deflecting, more deflecting. Now, this right here, page 13 of 216, analyze the contributions following principles of liberty, justice, equality, and the quest to end slavery. Liberty, justice, and equality to end slavery. Okay, I don't need to say nothing about that. If that's what they think, again, changing history, rewriting history, that's what they're doing. They are rewriting history, and they're trying to make it seem that laws and stuff was implemented. The right people, the right white people got in to say, hey, this is harsh. We got to stop this. Everyone's equal. All that. When all those things were written in, equality, justice, and everything else, slavery was still going on. So let's be real. Okay. Let's be real. It's trying to rewrite history with that question on page 13. Now, the last one that I have down, and I'm going to leave it alone because, again, I left it at that. It's page 17 of 200 of the 216-page document, and got the benchmarks. And this was real important. Instruction includes acts of violence perpetrated against and by African Americans, but is not limited to the 1906 Atlanta race riot, the 1919 Washington, D.C. race riot, the 1921 Tulsa massacre, and the 1923 Rosewood massacre. So again, on page 17, on that 216-page document, clarifications, number 2, the benchmark clarification, it says instructions include acts of violence perpetrated against and by African Americans. Do you really expect me to believe? Do you really expect a Black person that knows their history of America? Do you really expect us to truly believe that we were the blame of the Tulsa, Oklahoma, that Black people were the cause of Tulsa, Oklahoma? Are we supposed to believe that we were the cause of Rosewood? We were the cause of all the riots in Illinois, and wherever it was. This is what it's saying, perpetrated against and by African Americans, and they're making it seem like other African Americans played a part in the demise of Black progress or Black by having Black massacre. Where is the evidence to support this? If this is what they're saying, somebody please show me the evidence to this. I want to see where there was groups of Black people, willing participants in the demise of Black liberation. When I mean, let me, you know what? Let me bring that back. Show me the proof, the physical proof of Black people being willing participants in the massacre in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Because if you guys don't know, a judge, I just did a story that the county judge in Tulsa ruled against three or four of the survivors that are left in Tulsa, Oklahoma, basically saying that they don't get no reparations. So now, to add insult to injury, the governor of Florida, along with the Florida school education system, decided or wanted to teach in this school system that Black people was the cause of Tulsa, Oklahoma. That Black people said, "Hey, it's a good idea to," or some Black people said, "Hey, it's a good idea to, have cause mass genocide." Yeah, we're down with that. Please show me the evidence to this. That is despicable. That is disgusting. And I'm wondering why I kind of know why, but I'm wondering why our Black celebrities aren't saying nothing publicly about this, making this known. Why more regular Black people aren't saying anything about this. I know the grassroots activists are out there, but I'm talking about the Black celebrities that have millions of following, where people are watching their stories. Why aren't they saying nothing about this, man? They really put this in the curriculum. They really did. And it's embarrassing. That's just my take of it. Again, I only read off the 17 pages, but again, I read most of the 216-page document. I just only went to page 17 and said, okay, I'm just gonna leave it right there. So you guys let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. It's just different with Tide. Make sure you comment in the section below. All right, hit the notification bell, man. Come on, I'm coming with that fire and that hot content. All right. So with that said, peace and love.